Well, good afternoon, everyone. This is Michael O'Malley here with a hurricane outlook and discussion for May 27th, 2020, recorded around 1:45 p.m. Eastern Time. Well, taking a look at the latest sea surface temperature anomalies, this was updated yesterday from the NOAA Coral Reef Watch website. And you do notice that our Nino 3.4 region, which is roughly this area in through here, is continuing to drop like a rock here, fall off a cliff really, with temperatures now about a 1/2 degree to a full 2 degrees Celsius below the long-term average, while the Atlantic main development region is still generally warmer than it should be. Again, there is still some cooler spots here and there, probably one about there, one about here. But all in all, the Atlantic main development region will continue to warm throughout the upcoming weeks and months here. And this is going to set up for likely a more favorable environment over the Atlantic main development region and set up for, again, what could be a fairly busy Atlantic hurricane season this year. Certainly, the presence of no El Nino heading into a La Nina environment is likely to favor the Atlantic here. We've already seen two named storms in the Atlantic, with Bertha forming this morning off the South Carolina coast, and we'll touch base on that here in just a minute. But again, we are likely to see a fairly busy Atlantic hurricane season this year, as we are no longer expecting any El Nino, and said by the winter of this year, we could be ending up in a La Nina environment. Again, taking a look at the sea surface temperatures across the Atlantic here, again, we are still in a weird AMO Phase 2/Phase 1 configuration that will likely transition to an AMO Phase 1. However, it is not 100% guaranteed. But again, this favors some warmth here in the subtropical Atlantic, but not really the exceptional warmth where everything across the entire subtropical and Atlantic basin, the whole subtropical basin, is warm. That's not happening this year like we saw in the 2013 hurricane season, where obviously we didn't have a lot because there was just a ton of warmth across the whole entire region that actually suppressed MDR development out here. This is a little bit more concentrated here. At least generally most of the warmth is south of about 30 degrees north here, so that's going to generally promote some more concentration of the energy out here in the Atlantic main development regions. Now, taking a look here at the actual Nino 3.4 regions, this is coming off the CDAS methodology from tropicaltidbits.com, just a different way of measuring the sea surface temperature anomalies here. And you do notice this has really just been falling off a cliff here. There is no El Nino to speak of. Actually, in fact, today we are actually in a La Nina environment with a negative 0.508 degrees Celsius below the long-term average. And that is the threshold for a La Nina. However, obviously, a La Nina is not just going to get designated because we are there for a day or so. Now, this is likely to continue to be steady or continue to fall over the next several weeks and months here. But again, we need typically about 3 to 5 months before the Climate Prediction Center can actually, designate this as a true La Nina. It needs to be over a couple of months to be actually designated as a La Nina. So just because today's contributor is in that La Nina threshold, it is not going to get classified as such, at least for another several months if we stay below 0.50. Taking a look here at the actual sea surface temperatures, again from the CDAS methodology here from tropicaltidbits.com, analyzed as of 1 o'clock this morning. And again, you do notice about generally west of about 50 degrees west here and south of about 30 degrees. This is our main area so far that is really the most favorable sea surface temperature-wise for tropical cyclone activity. And again, out here in the Eastern Pacific, where we are watching something that could affect Central America towards later this weekend and through next week, we could see that develop. Sea surface temperatures in this area are running about 90 degrees or so Fahrenheit. So again, fairly warm sea surface temperatures across this area, and fairly warm sea surface temperatures across most of the Caribbean here and the Gulf of Mexico. Fairly supportive overall in this area, sea surface temperature-wise, for tropical cyclone development. And taking a look here at the upper ocean heat content numbers, again, the higher you go up in the scale towards the greens and oranges and yellows, you're getting the higher upper ocean heat content, which is the warmer water at depth. And again, you're really starting to see here the board come to light here again, generally south of the 30 north and west of about 50 west here. You're getting this magical area per se, not really magical, but an area that has a lot more concentrated upper ocean heat content numbers. Again, The Atlantic main development region runs through about here, so the western portions of the MDR are certainly supportive now for tropical cyclones in the sea surface temperature profile and upper ocean heat content there. Again, out here in the eastern part of the MDR, still lackluster, but again, the intertropical convergence zone still hasn't really lifted north. Again, we are still 5 days away from the official start of the hurricane season. We've already seen 2 storms, and none of those actually formed out here in the MDR. So it's very important to understand that just because we may not have something form out here in the main development region of the Atlantic, we can always get systems to form out here. And again, this is where the majority of people live, and this is where it really starts to matter. Speaking of tropical systems impacting land, this is Tropical Storm Bertha. 50 miles per hour and about 1,005 millibars as it made landfall just to the east of Charleston, South Carolina today. Tropical storm warnings remain in effect for portions of the area through the next couple of hours, and expected to drop that warning here relatively within the next hour or so, as Bertha is now going to continue to weaken as it continues to lift through upstate South Carolina now, and eventually this will be impacting portions of North Carolina and then in through Virginia and West Virginia during the overnight hours tonight, and then certainly in through the day tomorrow. This will be a threat, heavy rainfall threat over the next several days for portions of the mid-Atlantic states here for North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, and West Virginia. Even up and through portions of Pennsylvania could see some heavier rainfall associated with the remnants of Tropical Storm Bertha here. And taking a look here at the Eastern Pacific, this is our Eastern Pacific system that we were talking about near Central America. Again, the National Hurricane Center has not designated this as an invest quite yet, but will very soon, I do believe so. The official designation will be Invest 91E here. We had 91L in the Atlantic Basin, and certainly now we'll get 91E here out in the Atlantic or in the Eastern Pacific Basin. Again, the Eastern Pacic's been relatively quiet here because of these westerly winds that have been kind of kicking across this area, but we are finally starting to see the sleeping bear kind of awake itself, and we are starting to see what likely could be our first system of the year that could actually directly affect portions of Central America. Regardless, heavier rainfall is certainly going to be a problem here for the Yucatan Peninsula all the way in through Central America, and even potentially as far into Belize City here and Cuba and the Cayman Islands and Jamaica could see some heavier rain kind of stretching out from a larger Central American gyre that is likely to develop across the region and will likely continue to make its rounds across the area throughout the next several days or so. And taking a look here at the Eastern Pacific, again, that's our system. 30% over the next 30 days with an 80% really over the next 5 days or so. So we'll certainly be watching that. And again, out here across the Atlantic Basin here, we are still continuing to watch what is the remnants of Tropical Storm Arthur moving inland again. This is taking a look at the vorticity in the atmosphere. The spin about 5,000 feet off the ground. The higher you go up in the scale is the higher amounts of spin you're getting in the atmosphere as we get some thunder out there. Again, you notice where our area of disturbance is right over here, right over the low country of South Carolina, where Arthur is. That will continue to drift off towards the north today, but we're finally taking a more northerly turn and affecting Virginia and West Virginia over the next couple of days or so. And if we take a look at one of the reasons why Bertha was able to form super quickly here, or not super quickly, but relatively quickly, was because of the way that our shear vectors are right now. Our shear is fairly light with a anticyclone over the system, and that's going to likely continue to at least be generally favorable in this area. Again, we're not expecting anything in there, but the shear vectors will certainly still remain favorable over the next few days or so. Excuse me. But for the most part, we did not have a lot of shear that was blocking this system this morning that allowed Bertha to actually consolidate around a common low pressure center and become a fully warm core tropical system. Now, if we take a look here at the GFS forecast at the 12Z run for about the next 12 hours from now, again, this is the remnants now of Tropical Storm Bertha out here, which will continue to affect portions of the low country and then the Piedmont area of South Carolina and through North Carolina. Again, we are watching this area out here in the Eastern Pacific really over the next several days or so as the remnants move northward. This is the GFS out to the next 84 hours or so. Again, we have a system beginning to form now in the Eastern Pacific. And again, this is around a larger Central American gyre that is likely to develop across the region Also, some sort of interesting system out there in the Atlantic basin, although not really paying attention much to that. The GFS does continue to spin up just past 5 days, does continue to spin up a tropical system in the Atlantic basin, in the Caribbean actually, which is right here around this Central American gyre. So again, the GFS has been fairly consistent with this area for development over the last several days. Our first chance for development is really going to be in the Eastern Pacific, as that is the most climatology favored for this time of the year. And then we are likely to see areas out here potentially in the Caribbean also have a threat for Tropical Cyclone Genesis. And if we take a look here, we're actually going to go back to the region. This is, by the way, coming from tropicaltidbits.com. So if you notice here, Bertha goes away, and then we are likely to see our next system begin to form. And again, some of that energy, even on the European, makes its way into the southern Bay of Campeche. So we will have to see if anything tries to get going there over the next several days. Just as a reminder, again, we do have our website that is being revamped here again. We're revamping our website, and we do have a lot of new stuff coming again. We do have our hurricane outlook and discussions that are out there. We also have the live weather data and a bunch more. We do have the live Twitter feed as well. So if you guys want to keep track of this, I will put the link in the description below to the website. And we're also tracking everything here on our actual weather station that is set out back currently. And again, we will be implementing a lot of cool things for this upcoming hurricane season. By the way, just as a note, we do have a tornado warning right now that is in effect just to the east right now, or just to the northeast of Titusville, Florida. So that's just one thing to note. We do have more rain showers coming in toward the Orlando metro region. Again, we are carefully watching for today's SpaceX launch that is set to go off here about 4:30 or so this afternoon. Again, a lot to watch over the next few days. We do have Tropical Storm Bertha that has made its way inland today and is going to continue to weaken over the next several days while bringing heavy rainfall across this region. We are also watching a system that could affect portions of Central America over the next couple of days as a tropical system is likely to form out there in the Eastern Pacific. Hope you all have a great rest of your afternoon, and I will be back with more for you tomorrow afternoon.